Hello and welcome to our Facebook Live. And that is exactly what we are. Brian and I are here live, ready to take your questions on public speaking. Excuse me. The excitement is doing my throat. I've suddenly got a frog coming in. That's how passionate I am to help you today with all of your questions you may have on public speaking. Now, with me, I have my good friend, my business partner, Mr. Brian Guo.
Hello, guys.
And Brian and I are going to be here for the next 20 minutes, half hour or so, depending what you have, to answer your questions on public speaking. Now, I did put this in our Facebook pages earlier, and a few people are saying questions. So if you've got any questions, feel free to post them. We'll address those as we go through the session. Plus, we'll answer those that have already come in. And you should find us on lots of different places because we're live, not in one, not in two, but in 5 different pages on Facebook. That is what I love, as I always say, about the technology that lets us do that. Before we get going, in case we've not yet had the pleasure of meeting in face-to-face on a live before, I'm going to ask Brian to say a few words to introduce himself to you. Then I'll say a few words to let you know a little bit about me, and then you'll know who it is you've got with you this evening, and then we can start our session together. So Brian, would you like to say a few words about yourself, maybe share a bit about your background?
Yeah, of course. So I came from China. I came to the UK, I think, in 2013. But before that, actually, I think when I was still back in university, I was obsessed with learning English. I literally had a dream of myself, like giving a speech to a larger audience in English. But back then, my English was horrible. But now, like 10 years later, like going through all this hard work, all these failures and experience, I'm really surprised that I was able to do that right now. So I used to be terrified of public speaking when I just came to the UK. I was shy, I was introverted. This is something I never believed I could do. But with the right practice and by pushing myself out of my comfort zone and just practicing a lot, I was able to tremendously improve my confidence. I was speaking a lot more. I was much more confident right now, speaking to a large group of people. And I was even participating in different speech contests back in 2018. And that has definitely a boost to my confidence. And what I realized is that the confidence you get from public speaking doesn't really stay here. It expands to every single area of your life. Do you agree, Andy?
I totally do, Brian. You know,
yeah.
When I first started, I thought it was just for work and for presentations. And then as you get that confidence, Brian, you're absolutely right. It is amazing how, I mean, have you found this, Brian, when like you're having meetings, one-to-one meetings with managers, on the phone, talking to people, you just feel so much more confident, don't you?
Exactly.
You know, you can articulate yourself.
Yeah, I used to feel like I'm always be the quiet one. And because of the language barrier, I always have this question in my head, is my English good enough? And I always go for the safer option is to stay quiet in meetings. And the result is like no one really notices you. You're just that guy in the corner that no one knows. But later on, a couple of years later, when I feel much more confident, I was able to kind of just express my ideas and share my thoughts. That really helped me get into that leadership position, leading a team and getting that promotion.
Yeah,
I think you probably have something similar as well, Andy.
You know, that's exactly why I started doing my public speaking, because you're right. You have to be heard. If you're not speaking up in meetings, you just become invisible, right?
Exactly.
And nobody notices you. And there's something I think we were talking the other day about, saying that, you know, you've got to have that voice to be seen as a leader rather than the follower.
Exactly.
Nobody knows you. You know, I've been this guy, and I've seen so many other people that you can be the first in the office at night, or at night during the day, the last hour at night. You can work really hard. Yeah. And yet, unless you're out there talking, unless you're out there projecting yourself, nobody gets to see you. Nobody gets to know you. And that's why it's so important. And that is exactly why I did. That's why I started doing this. You know, I used to be really shy, really quiet. Go ready meetings if somebody suddenly asked me a question or I was the center of attention. The guy who would, you know, would sit there in the meeting before I spoke thinking, should I say this? Should I don't know, is it a good idea or not?
Exactly.
I never actually saying it.
Yeah. And what's annoying is that as you're thinking at the moment, like someone else, I don't know, James over there, just like, yeah, I had an idea. And this is it.
Yeah, they say the same one
and
as
you're
you,
like,
right?
oh, that's me. That's my idea.
And isn't it
Why
worse?
didn't I speak? Yeah.
When people then say, James, that's a great idea. Oh, yes, that's really good idea. And you're like, only I'd said it. Only I'd done it. But we don't, right? And that's why it's so important to get that comment. So you don't hesitate. You might reconsider what you're saying, but it's so important to say it. Otherwise, it's going to be the Jameses of this world. And that's what I've seen so often. It is the Jameses of this world who get the success.
Sorry, James.
Yeah, sorry to any James who might be watching today as well. You know, nothing against you, James. You're just a name we picked for random. But, you know, so, yeah, apologies to any James. I'm sure any James watching, you deserve the success you're getting too. So, Brian, do you think we should start with some of the questions which were sent in earlier?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Let's do that.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to start them. So these are questions. So if you've got any, feel free to put them in. In fact, I could bring up the banner that says it as well. But what is it you've got? What are your questions on public speaking? Just ask us anything. We're happy to answer them. I see some questions coming in on a couple of different channels. So we are live in 5 different places tonight. And we've also got questions that people submitted earlier. So the first question I've got is from, is it Katrina? No, it's Catherine. Catherine says, I like to use PowerPoint when giving presentations, even in very small meetings. The slides save me from getting lost. Do you think that's okay? Using PowerPoint is absolutely fine. Of course, there's nothing wrong with that. If it's needed, if it's actually needed. You see, you say in very small meetings and they help. I think, what did you say? Looking at the question here, Catherine, they save me from getting lost. So my suspicion is what you're doing, you're using the slides as your crutch. Maybe you're putting a lot of text and words on the slides or in the presenter notes. So in that case, it seems the slides are not there for your audience. They're there for you. And my view is you only want slides to be there for your audience, to help them with their understanding of what it is that you're sharing with them. So if you're just creating them, in essence, as an online script, right, then that's wrong. Because all you're doing is you're focused on the script and you're not focused on your audience. You're busy looking at your notes. You're busy reading your notes off the screen if you've got loads of presenter notes. Or worse, and Brian, I bet you've seen this as well, where people have on their slide comes up and it's all text, line after line. It's like a paragraph.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah. And what do they do when that paragraph comes up?
People just reading them. Yeah.
Exactly. So then, and I've sat there and I'm like, well, why don't you just send it to me? I can read. And I can read it quicker than you can. Because we can scan it much quicker than somebody reads out to us. So if you're doing that, Catherine, then I would say you want to think about having a few notes just to help you, to keep you on track. If you're using it as a script, if you're actually using PowerPoint slides to help your audience, to help with their understanding, then that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But think about what is the purpose of having them. If it's just for you, then look at having notes, cue cards, small piece of paper with a few keywords. That is all you need to keep you on track because you do know the subject. I get it. Sometimes they become like a safety blanket, having it all there just in case. But generally we don't. When we have our notes, we are fine. So to sum that up, I would say if you need the presentation to help the person you're speaking to with their understanding, absolutely fine. If it's just there as a script for you, then think about doing something different. Little cute. I say that I have little notes, say in the palm of my hand if I need them, with just a few key points and no more. So that's why I would think about doing that. Have you got any other thoughts on slides, Brian, or on that question?
I think you covered pretty much everything. Yeah, I think one thing I really totally agree on what you said, because you kind of need to decide if the slides for reading or for presenting, because there are actually two types of slides in the corporate world. Because some of the slides, it's slides, but it's actually more like a document that you want to read out for people, send out for people to read.
Yeah.
And then there's another part is the presentation. That's where you want to be the key. So you want to be the center when you're presenting. It's not the slides. And reading the slides is probably the worst experience. I think if you want me to read, I can read it by myself. Yeah, I can speed up, I can slow down. There's no point. Like
you can reread it, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Totally so and actually, the point you raise there, Brian, if I may say, I know I took everything there, is that you are the presentation. You're absolutely right. And that's why sometimes I've been to presentations and the presenter's in darkness because people got to see the slides, right? But no, it's not the slides. It's you as the presenter.
Exactly.
You are the presentation. Slides are just there to support it. Nobody comes to see a slide. They come to see you. So make it, as Brian said, you are the presentation.
Yeah.
Do you want to take the next question, Brian? I think we have another one coming.
Yeah, there's another one from Rob. What can you suggest to help me speak more slowly? People often tell me when presenting, I speak really fast. Yeah, it's something, I think it's a very common issue when people are nervous. I remember back in school, I have a friend, he has a strong accent. And whenever he's presenting, he just speeds up, like making it almost impossible to understand him. And I think it's all came down to the nerve, because you're feeling nervous. And when you're feeling nervous, what you want to do is you want to finish this presentation. You want to get everything done so you can leave. You don't want to be there. You just want to get it done and you're out of here. And what happened is you end up rushing. You just want to get everything done. You want to know your content, especially when you know your content really well. I think when you're nervous and when you know your content really well, and then you tend to rush. Because I have similar experience as well. When I first started, when I was preparing for my first few speeches, I will kind of like I'll over practice, so I know everything almost too well. And when I'm presenting, I was like, just quickly went over everything. The result is people didn't really get the message, and that's actually the most important thing. It's not about you finishing the slides or the presentation, the speech. It's about how much the audience, how much other people can receive, how much thing we can take from the presentation, how much value you can give them. So if you shift that focus to your audience, then that's the first thing you need to realize. It's not about you. It's about the audience understanding your content.
Totally right.
You agree, Andy?
It is. It's totally right. That's the only reason you're giving a presentation, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's why that's the pretty much the only reason why you're speaking. It's not about you. It's about helping other people out. And once you have that, once you have this idea in your mind, then everything just down to practice. It's pretty simple. If you want to slow down, I think the easiest way is just to record yourself. Even just use your voice memo, switch the button, and go over a few sentences just to check your speed, and purposefully practice to slow down. If you're consistently speaking too fast, I would recommend you try speak twice as slow as you normally do. You just slowly speak and get used to that feeling. So your brain, your muscle, the muscle in your mouth are actually used to that feeling of slow, like speaking slowly and using pauses and taking a breath. Take like inhale, exhale, relax, let the point land. So that's my tip. I think practice, purposefully slow down, and have in mind that it's all about how much the audience is receiving, than instead of you finishing the whole thing.
That's good points, Brian. And that's fun enough. Is exactly what I had to do when I first started. Because when I get excited, as you know, I could talk quite fast. And then when I was really nervous, I would go really, 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 really fast. And nobody could understand a word I was saying, because it was adrenaline's pumping and you just want to get this over and done with so quickly, as you rightly say. So it is deliberately and consciously slowing it down. And then you're right, as you say, it becomes second nature.
Yeah.
It's like anything we do. If you keep practicing it, it just becomes that second nature to you.
Yeah.
Good advice there, Brian. Good advice.
Yeah.
Similar advice that I got. Dinesh, I think it's pronounced Dinesh, as obviously impressed by that because he just put in. I think it's a he on in one of our channels. He wants to know. He says, "Great content. What other speaking secrets can you share, please?" So he obviously likes our secrets, Brian, and he obviously likes what you're sharing so far. A secret. You know.
What's your top one?
Okay. Come closer. Come close. I've got to whisper. You've got to prepare. That's it. Yes, you've got to prepare. If you want to succeed at speaking, prepare. Prepare early. I always say this. It doesn't work when you prepare an hour or 2 hours before the meeting. You have no time to prepare and practice. That's me, I've done it. Right? When I used to hate public speaking, that's what I would do. I would leave it to the last minute, the nerves, the anxiety, the same. If you don't think about it, you won't get scared, right? So therefore, I didn't do it. But that just makes it worse, right? So my advice would be, first of all, if you want some top secrets or top tips, Danish, it would be, first of all, prepare and practice. Practice. As Brian was saying just now about talking about recording yourself, recording your speech. That's definitely what I do. And if you're preparing early, that's exactly what you can do when you're doing it, right? You can prepare, you can practice it, you can watch yourself back, record it, watch yourself back, see where there's any areas that you want to improve. Like as Brian was explaining the last tip and question, slow it right down. So that is fundamentally it, right? First of all, that is the first thing. Everything else, once you've prepared early, once you've practiced, you start feeling more confident, which is obviously what we all want. Right? So therefore, I would start there first of all. Now, there's loads of other things we can talk about after that, such as when you're doing the delivery, to make sure you pause, make sure you're breathing, make sure you're standing straight so you can breathe. Often when we're doing deliveries and we're feeling nervous, we hunch down, we put our hands down the front. So I always say, make sure you're standing up straight, make sure you're feeling confident, projecting your confidence. But that will not matter if you've not prepared, if you've not practiced, because you're not going to feel confident with all those kind of things. So I would always start with that. Prepare. Even now I do when I'm doing something. But you practice early. I know you do. When you've got a speech coming up or presentation, I know you prepare, well in advance, don't you?
Yeah. I prepare way in advance. I think it's kind of come down to a lesson I had a couple of years ago when I first started. Mm-hmm. I remember I always wait for the last minute. And what happens is it ends up never getting it done. And when the speaking date is due, I have nothing. So I have to cancel. And I remember I was with a speaking club back then. And the club manager was calling me. I was like, why are you doing this? You're always some of the best speakers in London, and you just keep dropping up, you just keep canceling last minute, and that's not fair for everyone else. And I remember from that point I was like, okay, I would never wait until I would never booking the speech until I'm prepared. So that really helped me, because it really get me into planning early and prepare early. Because if you spend 20 minutes every day to practice for once every couple of days, compared to you have to cram everything into the first 2 days, it makes a difference. It makes a big difference. It's the same amount of time you're using, but by spreading it out into some intervals in between each practice, it actually gives you more time to reflect, give yourself some opportunity for ideas to come up in your subconscious. Sometimes when you're practicing waiting for a couple of days, new ideas coming up, and you can actually use that gap to review the things you prepared before. Because something you might think is great in the moment, but 3 days later we look at it, we think, oh, it's terrible.
So true.
Yeah.
So
true.
That
gives you enough time to reflect and improve with a lot of stress, and which enables you to be much more creative, I think.
It does. It does. And what's interesting, right? And Brian is an amazing speaker. He's won many awards for his speeches. Right? He seriously is amazing, right? And yet he tells you he prepares and practices way in advance, right? And if somebody of Brian's level does that, it shows how important it is for everybody to do that. Not leave it right to the end. Leave it to you on the train going to the event to prepare it, like I've seen people do, and I know they've done it. Right? So it is so important. So that's got to be the top tip. In fact, if you take away nothing from tonight's session, remember to prepare
early.
Yeah, exactly right. It is prepare early. I know we've got a few more questions coming in, Brian. I've seen them coming through, so I think we better move swiftly on. I was talking about that one for quite a while. Do you want to take care of the next one?
Yeah. So this one is from Lou, I think. So you mentioned the need to practice, which I totally get, but will my fear of public speaking diminish with the practice? I would say probably at the beginning. I would say yes and no. Especially at the beginning. I mean, you're practicing a lot because you're nervous, and I think personal experience, like especially my first couple of speeches when I was doing that, I still feel really nervous, even though I'm well prepared. But later on, it did, like the more I do it, the easier it gets. So the fear might still be there, but the impact of your nervousness, of your fear on your performance will decrease over time as you become more experienced. Because as you practice, what you realize is that people can't really read your mind. You might be really nervous, you might be like trembling, you might think, oh, I must appear to be so nervous. And people still come up to you like, well, what you share is amazing. You did great. What? You're nervous? I didn't see any of the signs. And that's when I realized, bam, it's actually not what your perception of when you're feeling nervous, other people are not necessarily seeing that you're nervous. So it's two things, your internal and external, you can separate them. So as you become more experienced, what's going to happen is you might feel a bit of nerve, but you are so good that you can still perform. And other people will never be able to tell if you are nervous or not. So I would say practice will definitely help you diminish your fear eventually, but that feeling is going to be there from time to time. Even the best performers in the world still have that. Like people like Adele are still talking about she still has stage fright. But the trick is you know your craft so well, even though you're scared, it doesn't stop you from giving a great performance. And it's the same for public speaking as well.
It is. With some anxiety, I think it's fine because, a little bit, because it shows you care. You're excited, but it's not letting it become so debilitating that your whole body is wrapped up in it, which does come mainly from, we keep going to saying it, preparing and being ready and psyching yourself up for it. But you're right, nobody does know how you're feeling, and nobody does notice. And one of the biggest things is worrying about if you're going to make a mistake, and nobody does notice if you slip up. We like to think that everybody's 100% focused on us the whole time, listening actively to every single word, every gesture we make, but they're not. Half the time they're tuned out and they don't notice what you're doing, and I did a presentation a while back, and I remember I deliberately skipped slides that were in my deck because they had videos and audio in it that wasn't available due to technical problems at the venue. Now I could have gone on, oh, I'm really sorry, this slide, I should show it, it's a video about this and blah, blah, blah. But, I just kept talking, skipped them, talking, skipped it. And at the end, nobody noticed any of the slides I skipped. Right? Nobody noticed because I just spoke through them.
Yeah. Right? It's like sometimes even if they notice, it doesn't matter. It's like it's going to be such a small thing. Like no one's going to remember. Like 10 years later, you wake up. Oh, 10 years ago, I remember at Andy's presentation, he skipped a slide.
No, they don't.
It doesn't really matter.
They don't. They seriously don't. Right?
No.
We might. This is the thing, right? We wake up in the morning. Oh God, last night I did this. And nobody remembers. Most of the time it happens and they forget it.
Yeah.
And it becomes an issue for them when it becomes an issue for you.
Exactly. Because everyone else is busy worrying about their own other things. Yeah. So.
It is. They totally is, right? And Brian, I'll just take this one that's come in because it kind of links into what you've just been saying. Sunita, I think you pronounce this one, is always fun enough. She's picked up what you were saying about anxiety and the nerves, well, my words, nerves. And she wants to know, does imagining the audience naked help? I would say no, really. I mean, how would you feel sitting there if the speaker announced, I'm imagining you naked?
It's probably not something to announce, I would say.
No, right. Yeah, exactly, right. But I have heard of that happening, right? And I don't think it does. Quite frankly, some of the places I've been speaking to, if I started imagining the audience naked, it really put me off, quite frankly. I don't think it's something I want to do. Right. So yeah, you Brian said you certainly wouldn't want to announce it. I'm feeling a bit nervous. I'm going to imagine you all naked. Yeah, that wouldn't go down well. And I don't think it's a great. I know it's one of those things people often say, but I'm not sure how imagining people, your work colleagues, your bosses, anyone naked is going to make you feel relaxed. I just don't see that. So I would go back to what we've been saying. You know, preparation, the thought, the taking care of it. This, getting ready is where it all comes from. So I would say, not imagining people naked. It's not going to work.
I think I agree.
Do you think, Brian, do you think it would work that you don't do any preparation, you don't do any practice, you turn up at the room and just imagine everybody naked?
It's just one of those tricks that's not really kind of curing the it's not the root cause. You're feeling nervous is because lack of preparation and lack of practice and lack of experience. But this is one of those tricks. It's kind of, I think it's kind of insignificant if you're well prepared, if you know what you're talking about, and most important, if you have your audience, if you're kind of like give your entire focus to your audience. That's the kind of thing you don't really need to worry about. The things you should be thinking is that how do you give more value? How do you present so the audience could take more value from the speech or from your presentation? When you focus, when you shift your attention 100% into your audience, that's when you feel less nervous because you're connecting with people. You see like people are receiving your message. You can see it in their face light up. They're having that big smile on their face. And that's when you kind of relax because you know you're giving value to people, I think.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, it is. When you see that, when you see they're getting value from it, they're enjoying it, it is what makes, that's where you relax all the time. But take opportunities to do, who's that? Sunita, wasn't it? Take opportunities to give speeches and indeed to everybody else. You want to speak when you can, not speak when you're ready. Right? Because if you're waiting to be the world's best expert, then you never will do it. You're not going to become the world's best athlete by never running. You've got to be doing it, building yourself up, and then you'll do it. And you'll get better and better, and you'll learn as you go along. So whatever you do, it is to start and to practice is what you want to be able to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like just starting is actually, that's the most difficult part, I would say. It takes me years to really make my mind. I remember I attended my first speaking event in September, and I didn't start until 6 months later. So it's March the next year. I've actually started. But once you build up that momentum, it's just so much easier.
It is.
Because that's where I think that the fear is going to stop you if you don't actually take action. But once you take the first step, everything will just follow. Yeah. So I think people will probably ask where's the best place to start. And I will actually have something for you because me and Andy, we organize regular public speaking events. We had a speaking club, basically. We had two, in fact. We meet every Monday and Wednesday. So there'll be a group of like 20, 30 people for each group. And every week, either Monday or Wednesday, we get together and we practice. So that's the place where we make it really friendly, really safe, and really supportive, because everyone in the group are all coming from the same place. We're all having the same target. Is it, Andy?
That's exactly it. That's everybody. You're meeting like-minded people. Is the key. People who are just like you, who want to become better at public speaking. So as Brian said, pop along. I'll put it on the screen. There it is. That's where you can go along and sign up. Totally free to come along.
Yeah, come along. Check it out. Yeah.
On Zoom. You haven't even got to leave your house. You just come along and visit. You get to see Brian. You get to see myself. We will be there, and this community of like-minded people. And you'll see how it works. And believe it or not, it is public speaking, but people do have fun.
It is. Yeah, come along.
They enjoy it.
Yeah.
Some people tell us that it's a highlight of their week. Believe it or not.
Exactly. So the reason we we make it that way is exactly because me and Andy has been through the same journey. We came from a point where we're really scared and has tremendous amount of social anxiety. So that's why we create it in a way where it's really, really welcoming. So when you come along, you won't feel being left alone. We'll be there to support you. And when we get you to participate in our practice, we'll always make sure you're just taking one small step outside of your comfort zone. So we won't overwhelm you, because we know it's not a good feeling. And we'll do our best to make sure you're growing steadily but fastly.
Yeah, nicely put, Brian. And that's what it's all about, right? We will support you. We ensure that everybody succeeds. That's how. Oh, actually, Brian, I say we actually do care, don't we, Brian?
Yes.
We do care about everybody, and we want everybody to succeed. And say, even if you're not sure, you're welcome. You pop along. You don't have to speak. You can just be an observer at the first session, if you like, and you will see how every single member succeeds. Because that's what it's all about. As Brian says, we were there. We understand it, and that's why we put a lot of time in to make sure that everybody succeeds. So feel free to register at that link you can see on the screen, andy.chat/FB_live. Come along on Zoom, see us, see Brian, see myself, and see how we can help you succeed with your public speaking. That is the end of today's session, Brian. Already, where time is up, way up. Where does it?
Time flies.
It does. We're having fun. Thanks to everybody who has submitted their questions to us. We really appreciate it. Feel free to post any other questions you might have under this link, and we will pick them up when we're back next Tuesday. Until then, it's goodbye from Brian.
See you guys.
It's goodbye from me. We'll hopefully see you on the next one. Take care.